What is going on, everybody? My name's Chris. Welcome to Bourbinsane. Today we're back reviewing another Buffalo Trace product, Sazerac Rye. Now, Sazerac Rye, being a Buffalo Trace product, naturally is on allocation, so very difficult to get. If you can find it, though, it only is about $30 to $35. This is a rye whiskey. So, mash bill is undisclosed, but in general, probably around 51% rye. At least that's my personal thought based on the flavor profiles I get out of it usually. I think it's more of a bourbon drinker's rye, and I'll talk more about that coming up down the line, but only 45%, so 90 proof. And this is the official rye whiskey used in the drink, the Sazerac. So, the Sazerac cocktail, classic rye cocktail. It's funny because I've never really seen this used in a Sazerac these days because it's so hard to find. So, it's kind of funny, but right on the back of the bottle it does say rye whiskey to be used in the Sazerac cocktail. So I thought that was very interesting, but let's get into to a pour of this. So I was fortunate enough to get a bottle of this down in Kentucky, and then also locally here it did pop up. A couple times a year it'll pop up in the stores, and you kind of have to be in the right place at the right time to get them here in Michigan. In general, probably aged about 6 years. Again, undisclosed, but most likely a 6-year whiskey. And looking at the color, it's pretty dark actually. Kind of a medium caramel color. Really no legs on it at all though. Again, only 90 proof, so not too much you'd expect to be sticking to the glass there. Let's give it a nose. Still has, classic with Buffalo Trace, that Buffalo Trace profile. Cherry cola. Definitely more of a peppery, orange peel, citrusy, kind of a lemon note in there. All things I get on rye whiskeys typically. I'm even picking up a little bit of mint, really, really deep down in there. And typically mint isn't something I'll pull out unless it's like an older rye whiskey, usually 8 or more years. Maybe it's my brain just telling me there's mint in there, but I'm getting some spearmint in this. Nice nose. Again, I think it is probably a bourbon drinker's rye. Because it's probably barely legal rye, we're 51% rye. It's going to drink more closer to a bourbon than some of the very, very high rye or even 100% rye whiskeys. So let's give it a sip here, guys. Cheers. So actually very buttery on the palate. I don't know that I've ever described a rye as buttery before, but I kind of mean it just leaves a very smooth, nice flavor across the whole palate. Nice sweetness, a little bit of cinnamon. The same citrus notes are coming through. Let's give it another sip. The citrus notes, almost like an orange note again. Now, I would describe it on the nose more of an orange zest. This is kind of more like an orange creamsicle, actually, on the palate, which is very interesting. I think it's leaving a very nice buttery mouthfeel right now. It's not coating, it's not coating the mouth at all, but on the front end, it's giving that very sweet, very nice cinnamon orange creaminess. Very pleasant nose. Yeah. Even maybe some bright fruit in this, which is not very typical of a rye whiskey for me. A little bit of apple maybe? I mean, even some apple? Kind of odd. It would be, on the nose I got that mint, but I'd be hard pressed to say that this is even a rye whiskey. Tasting it blind, I feel like. Now I know, so I feel like I'm probably picking out more rye notes than I naturally would. But given the creaminess on the palate, the richness, I'm surprised. It'd be very easy for me in a blind to not be able to figure out this is rye, I think. Pretty short finish. It's got really good flavor though. It does. It's solid. Very solid. And at retail, you know, $30, $35. I think it's a pickup. It's definitely a pickup. As I mentioned, this is on allocation, so you're only going to see this if you see it a couple times a year, depending on where you live. Some people have this on the shelves all the time. But at least for me, it's very difficult to find. I talked about being a bourbon drinker's rye. I have always said this is more, if I want a rye I'm going to go to just drink at the end of the night, not making a cocktail, I'm going to go to Baby Sazerac Rye. As a bourbon first before rye drinker generally, that's starting to change now because I found some cask strength ryes I really love. But this drinks more like a bourbon to me, and it gives me that nice richness, creaminess, great flavor profile with it. So I think that's why it's more of a bourbon drinker's rye. If you're a bourbon guy or girl and you're just getting into rye whiskeys and you're not sure how you feel about it, this is a good intro for you. It really is. It's a good conversion to rye whiskey. The big two that a lot of people talk about are Baby Saz, which is Sazerac Rye, or Rittenhouse Rye, the Bottled in Bond 100. And I've always said Rittenhouse Rye seems to be more of a cocktail rye whiskey to me. I think because it's a little bit higher proof, kicked up to 100 versus 90. So that gives you more of that rye flavor coming through in the cocktail when you do water it down. And also I get more of a rye kick from it. I do get more of a rye, that typical rye flavor profile from the Rittenhouse than I do the Baby Saz. So that's why I kind of talk about a bourbon drinker's rye. Overall, this is a very solid rye whiskey. If you are a rye whiskey fan in general and you haven't had Baby Saz yet, I definitely say get it. Some bars you can still find this. They don't usually use this as the go-to rye whiskey to mix in their cocktails anymore because of how hard it is to find. But you can still get a pour of it a lot of times to drink straight. Do that. Because if you can't find a pour of this normally, I think it's worth getting a pour versus... and then if a bottle ever does show up, you know whether you're going to like it or not. So $30, $35 retail for the whole bottle. Great price. Great price. And if you can find a whole bottle, I say pick it up anyway. But to get a pour, it shouldn't be that expensive. Maybe $6, $7, $8 for a pour of this. So just because of the retail, it's pretty low. So if you can find it, definitely pick it up. I think you won't be disappointed with it. Thank you all so much for watching this review today. I've been really digging rye whiskey lately. I want to do more rye whiskey reviews in general. I just did film my cask strength rye whiskey head-to-head. If you haven't seen that yet, go check it out right now. I'm liking rye whiskey. A lot of us started not as big rye fans, and we're starting to convert over. At least that's what I've noticed with the whiskey community. So me personally, I'm starting to convert to a rye whiskey person, I think. So let me know down in the comments below, do you have a rye whiskey you prefer? What about cocktail rye whiskey? What's your go-to cocktail rye whiskey? Rittenhouse, Baby Saz, something else maybe? I do have plans to do a normal rye whiskey head-to-head. Things like the Rittenhouse, this, Old Overholt, maybe Old Forester rye as well. So a non-cask strength rye head-to-head. Let me know if you'd like to see that as well. I appreciate you all watching this today. Just so you do know, I do have challenge coins available still if you'd like to pick some up. Go ahead and shoot me an email at bourbinsane@gmail.com and I'll get you taken care of. Thank you guys so much for watching the review today. Stay insane.